every politician in Meghalaya who has become big because of the Congress. Honestly speaking, ILP is required.
And on to the big story from Meghalaya now. No ILP, no rest.
If we speak about 2016 till 2020, it's already 4 years and it's going to be 5 years running. So till date, we have not seen the light of the act.
When will that happen?
Leave it on the politicians.
Manuel Badwar, an emerging political figure from Meghalaya, contested the 2023 Meghalaya Legislative Assembly elections as the Congress candidate from the East Shillong constituency. With a vision for progress, he has been advocating for fresh perspective in the state's political dialogue, aiming to engage younger generation in the shaping of Meghalaya's future and aims to bring a modern, dynamic approach to the state's politics.
You don't need to build footpaths everywhere. So tourism sector will not alleviate the total unemployment issue too. I think the policies of the government should be a lot stronger.
I understand this, but me understanding is not the society understanding.
Jump and learn how to swim. When you go to Amazon and you buy a pine cone, one packet of 10 pine cones will cost you $500. Get those pine cones, pack them 10 pieces, do nice packaging and say, okay, I'll sell this as well. Now this is the future. Is the state doing anything about online till now? First and foremost, thanks to you. For inviting me for this podcast of yours. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people like us also to at least get our voices heard in some way or the other. What inspires me? What inspires me is life as such. Nothing more than life, right? We live only one life. And I always keep on saying this to the young people, to the community as such, especially the ones that are at least considering themselves to be at least better educated. Politics is something which is very inherently important in our society. But in the days gone by and in the few years that I've seen at least, I've noticed a lot of people, they either fear politics or they don't want to come forward and be active participators in politics.
Right.
So having mentioned that, you should also understand that politics does not necessarily mean only electoral politics. Means you don't have to contest for elections, but be sensitive to the policies that the government is making. Be sensitive to the degeneration that is happening in our society at large. Be sensitive to the things that evoke a sense of responsibility amongst the public at large, but mainly the youth. What motivates me is I want everybody, be it of any social strata or any community, especially in Meghalaya, I want everybody to come up and start playing an active role or let your voice heard. So that the general politicians or the general bureaucracy at large or administration of the state at large understand that they cannot take the general public for granted. And when we have an active community which comes forward and fight for the right of the people and probably even fight for the fight for democracy, fight for something which is very close to our heart, right? Which is very much embedded in our constitution, and people don't treat life as if it's something which is being given to them and they just have to face it, but understand that we have to fight for everything. It makes the democracy a much more vibrant democracy, and it makes a community a much more vibrant community. And believe it or not, development will only happen when we make our voice heard. That's what motivates me most for entering politics as such, per se.
Lovely.
Yeah?
Lovely. It was great listening to you. I don't know how and what motivates you.
Yeah.
But
I actually came back to my hometown after a long time, after a long break.
Yeah.
So I remembering my childhood days. I remember my friends, going out to Shillong Peak and then the route bridge, and how things were, how the weather was, and the road there particularly. What happened was yesterday when I was actually taking a bike ride to the particular location that we usually go and hang out, things have drastically changed. Again, development comes at a cost. We also complain that the roads have not been. There was no development per se with the roads, but cars have increased. But when there's development of road, we complain about the deforestation that's been happening. It's very muddy. It's very dusty, but alongside that, remembering my school days, we always had to wear a sweater every time throughout the year, 24 into 7 at least. Now it's so hot sometimes, and it's so cold at this point in time, November, sir. So what do we do with the environment? How do we tackle that?
See, balanced development is always required. I mean, we cannot continue to live like nomads, right? We cannot continue to stay like how it was 100 years back or something like that, because population will keep on increasing. And with population increasing, there will obviously be a lot of economic activity that will be required. And in today's world, I believe so that economic activity is the fulcrum for everything, right? But then economic activity also has to be balanced. When I say balance, it means that we should not recklessly create policies that will harm the future generation of our people, the people who have lived in Meghalaya for so long. Because Meghalaya, the way I see it, is blessed. Is blessed in a sense that it gives a lot of people a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things. So while we might be living in a city center and in a very urban atmosphere, but nature is not far from us, right? You just have to hop on a car, hop on a bike for like 30-40 minutes, and then you're back in nature. So I think that is also very critical, because we attract a lot of tourism because of the beauty of the place that we have. But having said that, it is also extremely critical to ensure that the development of infrastructure in many places, to make it accessible for many more tourists and make it accessible for even the youths and even the people who stay in this place, while we make sure that the accessibility is better, but not to the extent whereby we damage the entire environment that is at large. Now, partly that you cannot just blame the government also. I think it's the attitude that we might have, right? So when you go to schools and when you meet the young generations, especially nowadays, there's a lot of people who are sensitive about littering. Littering, when I say littering, meaning that when they go to these places, a lot of people do feel as if, like, when we go for either a picnic or something like that, we'd like to keep the space in which we have occupied and the space in which we're using as clean and as pristine as possible. But then please remember that out of 100 people that might visit there, even if 95 people are very conscious of the fact, but if there are 5 people who are not conscious, they will anyway create a lot of nuisance, they will create a lot of littering, which is detrimental to the place in which they visited, detrimental to the environment, and make it look very, it doesn't portray a very good image, right? So that's also very critical. As far as the government is concerned, I think slow and steadily it's a good move, and it's evolving, right? So it doesn't matter which government comes in. Everybody knows that it is important for the state to develop. Everybody knows that Meghalaya itself has to propel itself economically, especially in the form of tourism, and the tourism sector has to play a very critical role. I only fear that the policies that has been made has not really translated to that. You understand? So because tourism contributes, a certain section of tourism contributes to the GDP of the state, right? So if the GDP of the state is, let's say, is 100 rupees, let's say 15 years back, if today the GDP of the state has gone to 1000 rupees, tourism sector when we were at 100 rupees was 5% of 100, which is 5 rupees of 100. Now at 1000 we've gone to 50, which is again 5% of 1000. So there's no difference. Understood? So the tourism sector should actually increase from the 5%, let's say, to 10%, to 12%, and so on and so forth. Then you can say that the tourism sector has increased manifold and has actually contributed to the economic development of the state. As long as tourism sector is still at par and as a percentage form to the total GDP, I don't believe that tourism sector has increased to that level. Now, having said that, when we make tourism policies, according to me at least, it should translate to the grassroots level, in a sense that an owner of a guest house should have an economic benefit, and somebody who works in those guest houses, whether be it how small it is, they also create some sort of an income for their families. So as a tourism sector, I believe that there's so many things that needs to be looked at, in the sense that you have transportation also, which plays a critical role in tourism. You have tourist guides also, which play an integral role. So every sector, or every person who is I would say a stakeholder in that, should have some financial benefit, and at the end of the day, the public at large should be a little sensitive, towards the environment in which they're going to, preserve the environment, preserve the livelihood of the people there, preserve their culture, and ensure that tourism is growing, but growing with that in mind. Not necessarily that we just damage everything, that we take out too much and we extract too much from it, to the extent in which we don't get that feel anymore of what we used to feel when we were kids, right? That's also very critical, according to me.
Absolutely. I think with the hills, the very essence of going to a rugged off-road and getting there to the pinnacle and then experiencing a particular hill, the view is a different sort of feeling altogether.
Exactly.
So taking that away is again a very it's up for a lot of debate. Of course, do you actually take that away or make it more accessible?
Yeah.
So what are your policies, and how do you, what is your idea? Let's not talk about policies, but what are your ideas that can actually benefit tourism to a certain degree, where people will benefit more out of the particular idea?
See, the way I look at it is like we have to study the data as much as possible. When I say study data as much as possible, because tourism sector cannot be clubbed as one umbrella sector of tourism, right? So tourism is also divided into so many pillars. So what we call as experiential tourism is one of them, like how you said just now, that you'd still like to experience the way things were many years back, right? So experiential tourism is a very, very important sector to me. Then you have educational tourism. Educational tourism means that whenever somebody comes and study in Shillong or Meghalaya, they also bring a whole lot of income for us, right? Because they spend a lot of money, be it in tuition fees, be it in hostel life, be it in the day-to-day activities that they do, and so on and so forth. So that's also one sector within tourism itself. Then you have health tourism. A lot of people come to Meghalaya not necessarily only for fun, right? They come here to take care of their health, for the family, and so on and so forth. That also is a big contribution to tourism. Then you have heritage tourism. A lot of people who have not stayed in Meghalaya for so long, but they come back to Meghalaya because they remember their childhood days. So they come here for the heritage purpose. In a sense, they want to experience what they used to experience as a small child. And now they're not here anymore. But then they still have that love for the place. And because they still have that love for the place, they always want to come back here. And that's also one section of the tourist sector which is quite big. It's not small at all, right? Then you have tourism, like for instance, you have festivities tourism. So people come here for the various festivals that the tourist department has promoted over a period of time. I still remember when we were kids, there used to be autumn festival. Then slowly it kept on changing. Now it's becoming a cherry blossom festival and so on and so forth. But it's always related to a particular time period, right?
Right.
So these are the kind of sectors in which the government should start looking at it from a different angle. So the different pillars will contribute to to different avenues in which probably can benefit the public at large, number one, benefit the stakeholders who are also key proponents of that economic development from the tourism sector. And I think that is also very critical for the government to attack those sectors a little differently. And I think how it proposes to do that is obviously debatable, but there's no wrong and there's no right. There's no wrong and there's no right. But the vision of the state is to at least understand that, while these proponents will keep on contributing, but at large, the tourism sector should contribute a lot more to the economic activity of the state. And that's the most critical part. And we have to reach there. We have not reached there yet. We have started the journey. I think the journey has been going on for quite a long time now. And we need to continue on pushing this. And probably in the next 15 or 20 years, it should reach that level. I would be the happiest person to see that the tourism sector contributes at least 15% to the total GDP of the state, so that we will not, as a state, be dependent only on minerals, will not be dependent only on GST, will not be dependent only on excise duty, rather will have an array of economic benefits that will probably push the state up and the economic activity to ensure that at least the livelihood of the general public at large is improved from what it is right now.
Right. So you mean to say how tourism can actually elevate the issue of unemployment to a certain degree.
So tourism sector will not alleviate the total unemployment issue to a very large extent, because it'll take a long time. But however, it can contribute to a very large extent to do that, right? It will contribute to a very large extent to do that. Because tourism sector, as you know, is very manpower dependent, right? It's less on infrastructure dependent, it's more manpower dependent. So for every income that the state achieves from tourism, there's a whole lot of manpower that needs to be deployed, and probably that can help a lot. I see that we have a good future, but having said that, I think the policies of the government should be a lot stronger, and I think it's moving in that direction. I will not deny that, but there are no concrete steps that I see, which is like, in terms of capital building and so on and so forth. It takes a long time, and there's certain sectors, as you said just now, which is experiential tourism especially, that needs to be preserved. You don't need to build footpaths everywhere. People can still walk on the paths that has been created over a period of long time immemorial, and people get to experience that a lot better. Yeah.
Right. I actually got lost with another case. The foot over bridge that they created was in Assam. Though. After an accident, it was hugely questioned. Do they actually need a foot over bridge? So just like the way you put it, footpaths. We haven't had footpaths for a long time. For how there are like a lot of roads that never had a footpath, and it went down pretty well. There were no such incidents reported. Now the question again: do we actually need that? That is a very pertinent question that you actually raised.
See, that's an urban problem, if you ask me, when it relates to footpath. The accident that happened in Guwahati, right? I think it's a design flaw. It's very much a design flaw. In a sense, there's no safe zone for a vehicle that actually passes at that speed. There's no safe zone which has been created by the government. So the footpath itself, or the overbridge itself, has intruded into the path of the vehicle, right?
Right.
So it leaves no space for the vehicle, and plus I think it's a design flaw in the sense that it does not have an impact zone either.
Right.
So when the car went and it actually smashed into it, in fact it smashed into the railing, which is just next to the road, and there's no buffer zone. So such kind of designs and such kind of engineering, I think it's flawed. And I mean, we should look at it from a lessons point of view, like places like Meghalaya and so on and so forth. Even if we make a skywalk and so on and so forth that the Chief Minister has spoken about, we need footpaths. We need many more places for people to walk. It is very critical for us to start going back to the essence of the importance of having to use, having to basically walk around and stop using vehicles too much.
Right.
Yeah, and that is also one of the proponents in which which will help in building a health conscious society. So footpath is important. There's no denying about the fact that footpath is not important. But where do you put a footpath and whether it intrudes, that is also a very serious
Question.
pertinent. And it's a very good lesson, in fact, that the Meghalaya people as such should learn from such designs, because
Correct.
they're very wrong. Yeah.
Correct. So coming back to the issue of tourism, not really issue, but the topic of tourism.
Yeah.
How do you view ILP in that regard? Do we actually need ILP, or ILP should be implemented, or how is it like?
See,
Will it actually affect tourism?
for me, honestly speaking, ILP is required. Let's be very clear, okay?
Right.
If somebody comes and argue with me and saying that ILP will impact tourism sector, I beg to differ in a very large extent. It might affect tourism sector for 1 month when you implement it, but in the long run, there should be no impact as such. Okay, so it's like asking a question whether visa is required when you go to Thailand, right? Or visa is required when you go to, a passport is required when you go to Switzerland. Does it impact Switzerland? Does it impact Thailand? We all have to use documents when we go there. Now, how we collect the documents is more important. See, ILP is, to my understanding, is not a deterrent for people to go to certain places, as long as we make it easy for them to access the permit to enter. Now, understand this. A process like an ILP system is not necessarily stopping people from coming in. It is just a process of actually numbering or counting how many people are coming in. See, when the government states that 15 lakhs tourists came into our state last year, now we should also know whether those tourists that comes to our state last year came for what purpose. As I had mentioned earlier, there are various sectors in tourism, right? There's the heritage sector, there's the adventure sector, there's the experiential tourism, there's the health tourism, there's the education tourism. Now, when people come to our state, it is very critical for our government and for our people to understand which is the critical sector which is very important, which actually pushes economic activity. So out of 15 lakhs tourists, if tomorrow I tell you 6 lakhs tourists came here only for health purpose, so the government will know that probably 40% of the tourist count that had entered Meghalaya is actually for health. So it doesn't make sense. It would make more sense for the government to push more health infrastructure, right? Tomorrow, if we know that 4 lakhs tourists came here only for educational purpose, which means we have to strengthen our educational infrastructure and system at large, so that we attract a lot more students from other states to come to our state and study that, right? And if tomorrow, if they feel as if, like, out of this many tourists that had come, we get this. So it's just a case of capturing the information when people come in. Now, it is very difficult if we go and use tools that has been used in the old age. For instance, if I go to Arunachal Pradesh, I have to go to Indo-Tibetan Police Force, ITPF, something like that, right? I have to go there, submit my passport size, fill up a form, and it's a pain. But in today's world, you can't just be on that, right? We have apps, we have URLs, we have so many types of technology that is actually going to add a lot of convenience for people coming in. So any tourist in Delhi, if he wants to come to Meghalaya, he just has to state that, okay, I'm coming to Meghalaya on this day, I'll be staying for 15 days, and when I stay, I'll be doing this and I'll be doing that. This is what my plan is. And as it is, you anyway have to plan, right? You anyway have to buy your airplane tickets.
Correct.
You anyway have to buy, you have to book your hotels, you anyway have to do that. So this is just one more process that you have to do. And if we can make it very convenient for him to do it, then why is it so difficult to do it? You get what I'm saying? So when people are fighting the proponent that no, that ILP is bad, ILP is this, they have to start thinking again. My urge, I'm only urging to think again, think properly. Don't just jump the gun just because people are saying it will impact your economic activity and so on and so forth. No, it will not. Believe me, it will not at all. Because for any tourist, there's no tourist who will come here with no plans, yeah.
Correct.
So when we come here, we come, like, for instance, the best part is when we have people who have left Meghalaya, who probably were the son of the soil, who were born here, but they now, let's say, settled somewhere else, abroad or anywhere else. When they come to Meghalaya, and if we are able to capture these kind of people, in fact, we can interact with them a lot more. They can become our ambassadors also, yeah? Right? So, but then we have to know who's coming, who's not coming, right? Like if I'm not settled in Meghalaya, I'm settled abroad or wherever, I have to tell my mom, no, I'm coming home, I'm
Correct.
staying there for so many days, so that she can prepare. And for all you know is that when I go back, I feel there's a safety concern also, right? So I think it's very critical. It's extremely critical.
I think Arunachal Pradesh again is a land of a lot of festivals, a lot of music festivals.
Yeah.
I think Zero Music Festival was just over. I think I was there for a camping site and stuff like that. So it wasn't really difficult for me to get an ILP. It just took me 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes. Less than 20 minutes, 10 to 7 minutes. I had to pay a certain amount of money, 500 rupee for the entire registration process. It got done within a few clicks.
Exactly.
So it's that simple. And then there's simply one checkpoint. They'll ask for your ILP. You need to show them. Once you're done, you're through it.
Done.
It's not difficult.
Exactly.
It's not difficult if you understand what the purpose is and how you want to implement it. Correct? Yeah. I understand this. But me understanding is not the society understanding. The society around is actually a little paranoid, so to say, because ILP comes in and then there's a problem for non-tribals. That is the sort of mentality that lingers around. Now, how do we combat that? How do we teach the population what ILP is? How do you educate the entire mass about ILP?
See, there's no such thing as educating the entire mass about the ILP. I think this whole thing is stemming out from the locals only. Okay, so it's a narrative that has been devised, and it's a narrative that has been created to put some sort of a fear psychosis amongst the general public at large, and to stop this from happening. Yeah, I think we have to look at the bigger picture. We really have to look at the bigger picture, because there is a bigger picture in this. So these are the small irritants, I would say, to some people.
But how do we actually tackle this?
But tackling that is basically having a good process in place, having an even sophisticated, technologically driven process in place. If we have a sophisticated, technologically driven process in place, believe it or not, it will not be of any inconvenience to anyone. And if we can prove that and run that through, invariably, all these noises that we hear, the proponents that are saying that they are against it, will eventually learn to live with the fact that, look, it is actually not that bad. See, sometimes you have to push things through also, right?
So you mean to say, jump and you'll learn how to swim on your own?
Exactly. Jump and learn how to swim on your own. I always believe, I don't know, Steve Jobs, right? When he made the MacBook and he made the Apple iPhone and so on forth, he always used to say that sometimes you need not listen to the customer also. Sometimes you should look at exactly what the benefits of the product are. And if you firmly believe that the benefit of the product is so strong that it will provide a whole lot of, you have to weigh the odds, right? That is so strong, you go ahead with it. And when you go ahead with it, once they get a taste of it, they will understand by themselves and buy your product. So those kind of proponents are sometimes, I think, being leaders, that's the reason why leaders exist, right?
Right.
And leaders have to push things through. Sometimes you have to push things through so that once it goes through, then people will understand that this is actually a lot more beneficial. See, because in today's world, when we do business, especially in tourism sector, I think it is very critical to understand the data. As of right now, the level of understanding of the data, even amongst the government organizations, even amongst the business people at large who are doing this business, they still don't understand. We still don't understand. So a few people have understood that well, that Meghalaya has actually attracted a lot of high-end tourists, and they've come up with these boutique hotels which are extremely expensive. By the way, me and you look at, we say, oh my God, the cost of the room is like 40,000 a night, yeah. But that businessman is doing well for himself because he's understood the pulse of the consumer, right? So the same thing, the government also should understand the pulse. We need to understand it. We can't just keep on shooting in the dark like how we are today. Because if we have to grow, and tourism as an economic activity has to be big in the state, then we need to understand the pulse of the people that come in here. Because geographically we have to understand, are we getting more tourists from Rajasthan, or are we getting more tourists from West Bengal? So if we're getting more tourists from West Bengal, only the data can capture, right? But we don't have that sort of a data right now in which we can work upon. But once we capture that sort of a data, then we will know how to design products also. So businessmen can know how to design products also to suit the need of the art.
Right.
Correct. So that's also very critical. Yeah.
Data is the new gold in this day and age.
Data is
we need data.
Yes, exactly.
So are we supposed to learn from a few states the kind of modules that they have adopted with tourism in the topic of discussion at this moment?
There's no such thing. It's not what you might say is like, it's off the shelf. You have a shelf, you pick it up from the shelf and you plug and play. It doesn't work like that. Tourism doesn't work like that, right? We have our own sweet little, it's like a branding exercise, right? We have our own little nook in which we'd like to be placed in the mind of a consumer. So it's a brand positioning. So that brand positioning of Meghalaya has to be a little different from the others. But have we identified what brand positioning we want to be placed? We want to place in the mind of the consumer. As a state, we've not done that yet. So we still are shooting everywhere. So that's the whole point. I've been saying that we need to understand the data much better. Yeah, I'll give you an example. When we travel from Shillong to Guwahati, we'll notice a lot of street vendors, they sell pickles, correct?
Correct.
Now we feel as if by looking at the pickles at large, we always get that feeling that, that means a lot of tourists buy a lot of pickles. But if you go and ask a Hindu Brahmin, or any Hindu who's a tourist who've come here, does he buy pickles from Nongpor? He will never buy. Because of his religious beliefs, he fears to buy a pickle which has not been branded. Because the oil that is being used in that pickle might not necessarily come from a very safe area.
Right.
It might not be full veg also, for that matter. So a lot of them don't buy. And yet the market is so big. But you have these Assamese people and you have Nagas and so on and so forth who travel on the same road. Maybe they buy in large bulk. Because Assamese as such, the culture is as such that they trust us. So they buy those pickles because for them it's okay. Because they feel as if, okay, because they understand the tribal way of life. But somebody from Bombay might not understand the tribal way of life, right? So they might not be able to buy. And yet the business is so big. So can you imagine if we hone our understanding and probably make policies to ensure that, the various things that people might take out of here even as a memorabilia and so on and so forth is attuned to the requirement of those people, then believe it or not, there's huge amount of market to be tapped. There's a huge amount of potential to be tapped. Yeah. I'll give you a very good example. Some of my friends used to come here, they leave Shillong, and as you know, guys, I always say that they will not remember to buy anything for their families until the last day. So they leave Shillong and they reach somewhere in Barapani and they said, okay, Manuel, I need to buy something for my mom or my wife. And then I said, okay, buy anything that you get on the road, right? So then they'll not buy pickle. So they'll buy pineapples. Okay. Now, for them, it's a huge inconvenience. Huge inconvenience if they buy pineapple. Why? Because you understand, they buy the whole lot of pineapple. Correct. I keep on telling people, as an economic activity, why is it not possible? Since 1986-87, we have formed a brand called MEG.
Right.
I don't know if you're aware of it, where we make jams and so on and so forth. There used to be a canning facility in which pineapple are being converted into pineapple rings. Yeah, and they used to can them. And after canning them, the price also increases. So a 20 rupee pineapple can become a 200 rupee can. And this huge potential for such things to happen. But why till today, we know we have the best pineapples, but why can't we preserve it? Why can't we do food processing out of it? And then place it in these products, in these markets across throughout the road. So that any tourist who doesn't want to buy pickle, then maybe he's got, oh yeah, this is a pineapple from Meghalaya. Buy it and take it home with him. And then he will remember it at least, right? So, and then now it would have gone in his mind that the pineapples are really good out here. And then those canning facilities, we can increase the distribution network and probably form a distribution network across the country and ensure that at least people get access to the pineapples that we have. As of right now, I don't see that. Most of the pineapples are being sold as a full pineapple like that. You go to Khan market, you'll still get a pineapple like that. But imagine the amount of wastage. Out of 100 kgs of pineapple, believe it or not, by the time it reaches Delhi, 30-40 kgs is anyway rotten.
Correct.
Yeah, so the price goes up. So those are the questions. Yeah.
So there has been a few brands from some time that I did my master's degree from Meghalaya, Nehu.
Yeah.
And it was around 2018-19. So during that time, I have actually been working with a few organizations, and that time I was, associated with the marketing of a particular brand, an organic brand from Meghalaya. So that's where I started learning about those organic brands and what they are trying to do, and the kind of soaps and organic soap, organic something like that, pickles and all of those things. They were churning them out.
Yeah.
What is taking such a long time for all of these localized brands to come up? And just like the way you put it, why aren't we not coming up with all of these strategies and marketing them correct? What is stopping us from doing that? Do we need more entrepreneurs? Do we not have the correct facility to promote the entrepreneurs, or do we not have a very favorable environment to be supporting our entrepreneurs? What is the issue?
There are lots of issues. Yeah. Let's just put it this way. India is a land of 140 crores population.
Right.
Meghalaya is a land of 37 lakhs population. Correct. Now we have to start thinking big. Correct. Now, to think big, you also need production capacities which match the big thinking that you might be doing. So there's a lot of these organic brands which are very limited in terms of production. Let's just put Lagadong turmeric. How much Lagadong turmeric can be produced, you think, in a year? So even if you've created this very good brand that has a huge amount of pull and people want this product a lot, but if your production capacity does not match the demand, then you obviously going to fail. Are you getting my point?
Economics.
So economics also has to play its role. So the point is, there's so many products that still has production capacity which is very limited. So no matter who comes up with how good they try to build this brand, and they come up with a fancy name, they've come up with a good packaging, they've come up with everything. But if you cannot keep on feeding the distribution network that you've created, and if your supply is erratic, then believe it or not, your product will never reach the shelf and will never be regularized in the shelf. And if your product is never regularized in the shelf, then sooner or later somebody who's consumed the product once If he goes back to the shop and he does not get it anymore, then he does not want to buy it anymore. Because they get distracted by other products that might be similar to your product.
Correct.
So it's very difficult. So I think the whole supply chain management is also very critical. So a lot of people used to talk about branding and so on. So I studied marketing, I studied branding. Please understand that while marketing and branding is important, the most important and critical things when it comes to economics is distribution. Because supply and distribution, sales and distribution is extremely critical to marketing. And if your sales and distribution network fails, forget about your marketing. People, you might have created a halo around your brand and it looks good and so on and so forth. But if it's not available on a regular basis and people don't see it, then there's no use, right? And for you to make it available, you need to have the supply chain. So the distributors are important. And if the distributors don't get the product that they want on a regular basis from you because your production capacity is not streamlined, then what's the use? Then you die out as a brand. And that's what is more or less going to kill us. So we should know which brand is very niche. When I say niche, means very limited in terms of capacity. Which brand is very big in terms of that you can actually scale up, right? And which product line that you want to scale up. That's why I keep on talking about pineapple, because I know pineapple has huge potential because the production capacity is quite huge amongst the farmers at large. But then when you look at other products like honey, for instance, how much honey will you produce? How much honey will you produce? You can't mass produce honey, but for you to make economic sense, you need to mass produce, no? How much coffee will you produce? How much tea will you produce for Meghalaya? It's always limited. It's always going to be limited because you have other states which are having a far more geographies to rear those kind of products, right? So it boils down to policies only. It boils down to, I think, economic activity can only stem with politicians working in tandem with the business houses and so on and so forth, and teaching them how to go about doing these things. We keep on trying to teach them about branding, about this, about that, but at the end of the day, if we cannot form a supply chain management which is good and which is stable and get good distributors to distribute your product in big cities, then believe it or not, sooner or later we are never going to die. Now, when you look back, we also have an online platform. So the online platform is also a very, very big platform, right? 70 crores people shop on Amazon today? If you look at Amazon and Flipkart and the other platforms, there's quite a lot of people that has actually experienced shopping online. Now this is the future. Is the state doing anything about online till now? No. See, there's a lack of understanding from the state's perspective also. See, understand this. An online platform like an Amazon is not a marketplace, believe me. Amazon is a supply chain management company. The sole goal is to do that. They create a market, no doubt. But then their job is to deliver products from the seller to the buyer.
Right.
And that's what they do best. Basically, they're a modern post office, if you ask me. Right? So, but they also lose a lot of money when they just go and deliver product to a certain geography, but they don't take product from there, because their logistics works like that, right? There's a truckload that goes into one city, but then if you don't have the same truckload leaving the city, Amazon does not make money.
I think, so that's a very valid point that you put out. When I was actually reading about you, I know for a fact that you're a proponent of online digital marketing, and since you have a very good background in fact with marketing, branding, you understand that pretty well. Remember, it was again around 2016, 17 maybe, when I was doing a bachelor's degree, and online market was something which was new. And that point in time, there was a huge cry in the northeastern region per se, just not Meghalaya, even Assam. People were actually not really confident about the online market, and they stated that it's gonna kill their system or their economy, because the sellers are not from that particular state, but there are different sellers selling their products and coming. So basically the entire ecosystem goes for a toss. They are facing a brunt loss of significant amount because their people are not buying from there. Now what exactly, just like the way you put it, what have we been doing about it?
So we've done nothing. Yeah,
and
let's
then
just put
people
it
are
that way.
scared, and
Yeah.
now that's a very
So, but then
precarious
that's the
condition.
whole point. The government should make it conducive for the locals also to participate in online. Yeah, and it's not a job of the government alone. It's a job of the government and the online platforms. Together they have to work, right? So people do fear a lot. Like for instance, if we want to buy a phone, a handset. Earlier we used to buy handset from local markets, right? But slowly, because of what we call as a modern trade. Normally all companies have this section called modern trade section, right? Which means online, right? So they sell it to these big guys who will probably sell it on an online platform, and since they buy huge quantities, they get very good rates, and they are able to give that good rates back to the consumer. So a local shop out here who sell mobile phones might not be able to match the price of these guys. Correct, no doubt. But if you can't beat them, you have to join them, right? Let's put it that way, right? So we need our local sellers also, local vendors also to be available online. See, online works on an algorithm, right? Right. So, but then they will not be able to enter there unless an Amazon open some sort of a fulfillment center here. So, do we have a fulfillment center? We don't have. Correct. So, we don't have a post office of Amazon here. Basically, to put it in very layman's term.
They have it in Guwahati, if I'm not
But now
mistaken.
they have it in Guwahati, but we need to have it in Shillong as well, right? So what happened is that the moment you have a fulfillment center here, then our local vendors also, our local shops also can register themselves as an online shop. Yeah, they can open a digital shop in Amazon. And tomorrow, if I sit in Malki and I shop online, the algorithm works like this, that the closest vendor actually is the vendor who will supply the product to you. So even if I choose an iPhone 16, iPhone 16 might be available in Meghalaya. It's the same phone available everywhere.
Right.
And iPhone anyway does not play with prices. Prices are stable across the country. So which means the moment I want to buy an iPhone and I don't feel like going from a shop because I'm so used to it, adat ho gaya na, that I will shop only online. So I've bought that, and the moment I buy that, automatically the closest vendor will be given. And in fact, I'm also feeling happy. I bought an online phone today. Today evening I've got the phone, yeah. Because the local vendor is doing the supply, na? Rather than waiting for 5-6 days for a product to come.
Correct.
But then you need to create that ecosystem, as you said just now. The ecosystem needs to be created, and that ecosystem has to be propagated from the government's perspective. Means they have to call these online vendors and ask them to come, open a house here, open a shop here, open a fulfillment center here. The moment you do that, you're allowing a whole lot of business people to enter the market. See, I'll give you a very good example. Now it's Christmas time, right? We need Christmas decorations. And in big cities, a lot of people buy pine cones. They don't get pine cone in Delhi, do they? So when you go to Amazon and you buy a pine cone, one packet of 10 pine cones will cost you $500. For a Delhiite, to get that pine cone is a great thing. For us out here, it's free, of course. No, we play football with pine cones. Tomorrow, if you open a fulfillment center here, there's so many guys who probably will go get those pine cones, pack them 10 pieces, do nice packaging, and say, okay, I'll sell this as well. You get what I'm saying? A mora wala. Correct. Lots of them know how to make moras, yeah. Now, if a fulfillment center comes here, they can register themselves and then say, I will also sell mora from tomorrow on online. Because even if they sell 10 pieces a day, it's a big enough business for them. It's an opportunity for them. So many businesses will come up and start growing because of these. I get my point. So a lot of people will be able to at least benefit economically because of such a platform. And Amazon will be more than happy. Half the time now the trucks come here full and they leave empty. Tomorrow they'll have a full truck also going. And for them too, it makes a lot more sense, right? You get my point, yeah?
Yeah, I remember my school days. I was from Edmonds, and I remember it's very green. It's a very green school, and the pines and playing football with that. Beautiful days. When is that happening? When do the trucks get to leave with a full payload again from Meghalaya? When will that happen?
Leave it on the politicians, yeah, and the bureaucracy. I think they're smart enough. Yeah, but I think we should propagate, we should push as young people of the society, we should keep on telling them that this is important, this is important. One day we might be hurt. Yeah, and one day we might be there, and once we're there, then obviously we'll get the opportunity to push this thing forward.
So when is that day coming? When will you be there?
It all depends on the public. Yeah, we're just contesting elections. If we win, we'll get there. Yeah,
Lovely.
we'll make our voice heard at least. Yeah.
Lovely. So what about the youth engagement? How do you look forward with the entire prospect of youth and pushing Indian National Congress towards a victory this time around?
See, that's what I'm saying. So, as of today, as of day before yesterday and yesterday, we've just started this registration process whereby any youth of the state who wants to be involved in politics, not electoral politics, not fighting elections, but who wants to get his voice heard, those youths can come up and register themselves with the Indian Youth National Congress, the Indian Youth Congress, IYC. It's very simple. Download the app from Android, from either Apple Play or whatever, from Play Store. Once you've downloaded it, it's with IYC, the name of the app. Download it, register yourself, give your phone number, give your epic, and then you'll be getting an ID. Then once you're an ID, the Congress would have identified you as a person who is a member of the Congress in some level or the other. And once that has happened, then we can at least get in touch with you from time to time, be it through WhatsApp, be it through many other portals, like other ways of communicating with them. And then if there are issues that you want to highlight or you want to talk about, you have Congress as a platform for you to come up as a member of the Congress, right? So need not necessarily that you have to be aligned with everything that the Congress does or say, but at least start your political activeness via that and become actively involved and let your voice hear, let people hear your voice, and you also start listening to the various things that are happening in our society at large. I would love it if as many youths come forward and at least be involved there. You don't have to be with the Congress for life. Later when you feel as if you want to move on, you can move on. But treat the Congress as not just a playground, but as a school for you to learn politics and understand politics. You see, Congress has always done that, yeah? You name it, every politician in Meghalaya who has become big because of the Congress. There's always some sort of an affiliation of many politicians to the Congress. In some way or the other, they have been with the Congress in some way or the other. And they jump gun, that's a different thing. But it's nice to know, right, that the Congress has actually created a lot of leaders, and we would like to create a lot more leaders. And it's important that leaders are being created like this. And thought leaders, I would love that to happen. Not just leaders who will just propagate things which are unnecessary, but at least people who has a very, very deep understanding of things. And we are here to teach them, and we are here to be with them. And together, I think the youths need to come up. And I would love it if many more young people come forward, right? Yeah.
Right. Beautiful words. I mean, lovely initiative to begin with.
Yeah.
Beautiful words. I think it will go a long way. Right, sir. I think it was a pleasure speaking with you. You are a gentleman, somebody who knows his words, and then I expect the Indian National Congress to do better this time around. And what happens is, this has been a phenomenon. I think we're not really left, but in terms of Indian politics, if we consider BJP as the right wing, then Congress somewhere in the center or the left. They have never globally been able to, the left I'm talking about, they've never been able to usually use the trending media per se to their advantage. If we look back the general elections in 2014, the BJP used television media at its best. It was phenomenal play there. Then when we come down to the general election 2019, there we see how they have played the digital media pretty significantly well. It was all BJP all around. There were different cases with the US and stuff happening. This time around, will the Congress party, Indian National Congress, play a different game by using all of the available digital media to their advantage and make a difference.
See, at the national level, I think the Congress party is extensively using the digital media to reach out, at least for the younger generation. At the state level, we are using it, but we are using it with a lot of caution. We are not just overdoing it, right? Because we feel that there's a negative impact also. If the wave is riding with you, it's good. But once the wave is not riding with you, then it's very bad to use digital media, especially when it's not organic, when you're just pushing it via spending a lot of money and so on and so forth. As long as the wave is still with you, maybe it'll be good. But in the long run, I think digital media also has to be cautiously used. So as a party, I don't believe that we have to go gung-ho about it. We have to be available. We have to make our voice heard where people are actively discerning or actively searching for the messages in which we try to. Not necessarily that we just push through the doors and just in your face kind of a thing. We don't want to do that. And a lot of falsehood also can be propagated by the use of such media, which we don't want. So falsehood, let people do it. Let fake accounts be created. Let all that nonsense happen. But I'd like to be as organic as possible, and I think it's important in the long run. We're an old party, so we play for the long run. We don't play for tomorrow and the after. We play for the next generation. We play for the next. Yeah, I think that's very, very critical to be seen as a party which is at least like in Khasi say bam jakhluj, no. We don't like to be seen as a party which is just reacting to just about everything. We understand exactly where we want to place ourselves, what is important, what is not. Yeah.
I think you're a very learned man. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
it was
you so
a pleasure
much.
speaking
Thank you.
again. Take
Thank
care.
you. Good
God
night.
bless. Yeah.
God bless.